All right, all right. I'm back. My apologies. We had some technical difficulties. I had to cut that short. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and we are gonna jump right back into this. My apologies, guys. We'll go through this a little bit quicker. Get out of here quick. So as I was saying before the interference came through, Cowboys looking good with Cooper Rush. A win in week 2. CD Lamb getting 11 targets, making himself known, making himself present, and looking great, honestly. Route running, athleticism, he just looks very good. If you have CD Lamb on your roster, I'm looking forward to how he plays. It'll be very interesting to see how well he does. Thank you. So, lastly, here about this game, I'd just like to say that the Bengals over the first 2 weeks did really rough stuff. Joe Burrow had some rough games here. I don't believe that this is going to be how the rest of the season looks. Texans, Brandon Cooks looking good, 10 targets. The volume is there. 4 receptions for 54 yards here, so not a huge stat line. Dameon Pierce, if you drafted him, probably got him late. What a come up. Congratulations. I did not actually draft Dameon Pierce. I believe I stayed away from rookie running backs except for Breece Hall, and we all know how that turned out. So definitely in somewhat of a committee. Hopefully he will get more of a lion's share down the stretch. Broncos, right? Sutton looking great. Judy going out with an injury in this one. Just incredible from Cortland Sutton. 11 targets, 7 receptions, 122 yards. Looking good, Broncos needed this win, and they got it. Javonte Williams, 15 attempts, 75 yards. Somebody who I drafted in 2 of my leagues. Very, very successful in my opinion. And he's got explosiveness in my opinion that is it's worth it was worth the draft pick where I got him. I think Javonte Williams came in great handy, especially over the past couple of weeks where it's just been so rough at running back. Cowboys Packers. So the Cowboys, just the Cowboys and the amount of pass attempts that they have, it's like almost sad. It's almost depressing. Justin Fields been on the field for all 3 games with the Bears. He's got, I think it comes out to something wild. I have it here. I think it's like 47 maybe. 45 total attempts over 3 games. Like, I know we're just on week 2 here, but if you count the 17 and then include these as well, he's got a total of 28 pass attempts over 2 games. Like, at this point, I'm starting to get worried because you're not seeing a lot of volume. If you drafted Fields and you're playing him, then I'm sorry. I know this will probably be the case in much deeper leagues, but maybe not. There's a lot of quarterbacks, 32 teams, 32 quarterbacks. Like, I think that in a really, really deep league, Fields shouldn't even be considered, especially now with Jimmy Garoppolo back in for Trey Lance. He should be on waiver wire everywhere. So if you really do need a quarterback and you can't pick up a Carson Wentz or you can't grab Joe Burrow or Marcus Mariota, maybe considering somebody who's not Justin Fields would be for the best. Aaron Rodgers still not doing amazing. Aaron Jones, however, incredible. 15 attempts, 132 yards. The Packers take this one 27-10. Cardinals and Raiders. Of course, Darren Waller steps in big in this second week game. Thank the Lord. Heavy drafting of Darren Waller in my leagues. 8 targets, right? 6 receptions, 50 yards. He looked good. He looked like Waller does when he's healthy. It looks awesome. Uh, I was worried Devontae Adams might consume some of that target share, but here we are. Let's do this. Henry. Another week 2 hardship for Derrick Henry, but all is well. So, it's Derrick Henry. At the end of the day, it's not something you can stress about overly so. You're going to get that production from him eventually, the kind of back he is and the size that he has. So just patience. It's not like you're going to move him out of your lineups, obviously, but the Bills here, they just stomped the Tennessee Titans in week 2. Their defense looked healthy and agile. I mean, that combination of Micah Hyde and Jordan Poirier when they're healthy is stellar. It's incredible. We've seen what it did to the reigning Super Bowl champions. So, of course, going up a less potent but maybe equally talented, I would say, offense. In the Titans, it's clear that, the outcomes were somewhat similar. Vikings-Eagles, I expected a bigger game from Justin Jefferson here. I always expect a big game from Dalvin Cook, but Dalvin Cook is Dalvin Cook. And he, produces on both sides. He produces for you as a rusher as well as he produces as a pass catcher. Not heavily so as a pass catcher, not as heavily as some other running backs, but it's solid. So nothing to worry about there. Eagles, the Eagles. Hurts, Devonta Smith looking great, 7 for 7 for 80 yards. A.J. Brown producing. Dallas Goedert doing well. So this is an offense that's firing on all cylinders. If you drafted any of the 3 players I mentioned, Devonta Smith being probably the person I'd rank the lowest there just because of the depth at his position, I would still start him, He's definitely flex consideration. He's seeing a good target share. So if you got him on your roster and you're feeling up to the task, I don't see why not have him in my lineup with an offense that's continuously finding new methods of scoring. Steelers-Browns, beginning of week 3. Steelers-Browns, Steelers again struggling with Mitch Trubisky under center. Najee Harris, though, still productive. Still good. There's a lot of good things to say about Najee Harris and not many bad things. So let's go on week 3. Here we go. Yeah, so 15 for 56 yards and a touchdown, 3 for 3 on the receiving end. Harris will produce. He might not be this super stellar running back right now because of the problems they're having at the line and because of the problems they're having under center. But the same goes for Deontay Johnson, They're not stacked with the best situation necessarily, and they're making the best of it. Deontay Johnson, 11 targets, 8 receptions on 11 targets, 84 yards, 16.4 fantasy points without a single touchdown. I would say that that's a steal. Browns, of course, Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb looks outstanding, absolutely unstoppable. 113 yards and a touchdown on 23 attempts. And Amari Cooper, what a big surprise. Jacoby Brissett to Amari Cooper is a real thing. It looks great. 11 targets to Cooper for 7 receptions and 101 yards. And I believe he had a touchdown too. Both of them scoring touchdowns in this game. They're both lineup locks. They're the wide receiver 1 and the running back of a real football team that's trending upwards, that's on the rise. So if you have them, put them in your lineup, feel safe about it. You might not have stellar performances week in and week out from Amari Cooper, but I would say he has a higher floor and a lower ceiling than we originally assumed that he had at the beginning of this season. Panthers Saints. Panthers looking dreadful. Baker Mayfield still having problems under center. Christian McCaffrey is a light of shining, is just the warmth that this team needs right now, the star that guides this team in the direction it has to go, in my opinion. He had 25 carries, 108 yards. DJ Moore. DJ Moore is just becoming somebody that I think needs to have proven scoring ability, because I'm looking at his stat lines for the last 3 weeks and I'm underwhelmed. I grabbed DJ Moore in one of my leagues. I've never drafted him before. I have a friend that's very big on DJ Moore and the Panthers, loves Christian McCaffrey. And I was talking to him. I had a draft the next day, and he told me DJ Moore and how he's envisioning a draft where he gets to draft DJ Moore. And I said, oh, okay, so maybe DJ Moore I can grab in the 3rd, 4th round, if he's available, pick him up. Not somebody who necessarily might be extremely efficient, but they're wide receiver 1, so at least he'll have a decent enough floor, which, of course, I've been wildly proven wrong. Chenault was the lead guy in this, was the leading receiver in this. Like, Chenault had 90 yards. He only caught 2 balls, but he had 90 yards. He exploded on a play, I believe, where he went for 60 or 70 yards. He caught the ball and just torched the defense. It was one of the more interesting scores the Panthers had on the day. Saints, on the other hand, looked great. Winston looked great throwing to Olave, 13 of 9. I'm loving this rookie. He's getting the volume. You're seeing him get 11, 12, 13 targets every week. That's awesome. That's exactly what I wanted from somebody who I drafted quite a bit, hoping that he would find his way in to this matchup. Of course, Michael Thomas not being a major participant will play a factor this week, so keep that in mind. Kansas City Chiefs, Indianapolis Colts. Kansas City looked pretty good. Mahomes looked all right. Smith-Schuster saw his first week as the receiving leader for the Chiefs. 8 targets, 5 receptions. Pittman Jr. back on the field in week 3, looking great. 9 targets, 8 receptions, 72 yards. Somebody you can lock in, not a problem. Jonathan Taylor also coming back around, 21 attempts, picking up 71 yards. The Colts needed this win. The Colts took it, and rightfully so. If they wouldn't have, I myself would have had a problem with it, honestly. But they were able to finish it off, come through big in the end. So more power to them. Texans Bears. Bears end up winning this game against the Texans. Dameon Pierce looking great, 80 yards, 20 carries, seeing that volume. Moore coming up for the Texans, 3 for 3 for 63 yards, leading receiver in that game. Not a lion's share of the targets in that game, but he did the most with his opportunities, that you can say. And he looked good. I was watching the tape from this game, and he looks precise. Let's phrase it like that. He looks like a precise pass catcher and like a disciplined route runner, which is something that you love to see in a wide receiver. So, Bears, can I say about the Bears? 17 pass attempts, 45 in total on the year. Like, are comparing this to the massive amount of passes the Jets and the Commanders have thrown. It's insane. 135 pass attempts from the Jets, 130 pass attempts from the Commanders over 3 games. The Bears have 45 pass attempts. I'm going to make a definitive statement here. I'm going to downgrade all wide receivers and pass catchers in Chicago. If you don't have their running backs, then I would basically consider them a non-starter. Just because Justin Fields also adds with his feet too. He's very athletic. He can move well, and he's not passing the ball. He's not getting the attempts. So, Bills Dolphins. My Dolphins come out on top, incredibly enough. Can't believe it, but here we are. I think it was mostly defensive for the Dolphins. We weren't on the field at all during this game. Tua threw for 186 yards. I think he had 18 total pass attempts. So it's not much, you know. It's not like our offense was really there. We were able to score when we needed to score, and we were able to stave off a very fierce Buffalo Bills defense. Josh Allen threw for 400 yards in this game. 63 pass attempts, massive amount of passes. Stephon Diggs looked great, 11 targets, 7 receptions, 74 yards. Jalen Waddell led this game with 102 yards. You know, that was a humongous deal for me. Tyreek Hill had a relatively low stat line, but we could have assumed that was going to happen in 1 or 2 games, considering how talented and potent Jalen Waddle is. Yeah, go Dolphins. Hell yeah. I'm very happy with my Miami Dolphins. I've watched them since I was a kid, and to see them find some sort of success is good. It's taken a while, but it's good. Lions, Vikings. Vikings take this one by a hair. In a game where you thought Justin Jefferson was going to come back and storm the palace, we actually saw the opposite. We saw Jeff Okudah come in and stomp out one of the most athletic wideouts in the game right now. So that's worth mentioning. That's worth observing, because now I'm going to want to know who Jeff Okudah is going to shadow on a week-to-week basis. Mainly because he's just been, for the same reasons I would want to know who Darius Slay, Marshawn Lattimore, Jalen Ramsey's going to be shadowing. Jalen Ramsey's been less potent as the years have gone by, but Patrick Surtain, you know, like, these are the people that I want to know who they're going to be on, because most likely those people would do better to not be in my lineup, considering those matchups. Now, of course, there's people you can't, sit, and there's cases that bode in people's favors. Cooper Kupp, for example, lines up at the slot a lot, which means that he doesn't have to, they're not bringing corners into the slot that much. So, it's worth mentioning, but at the end of the day, both of these offenses still very potent, very willing and able. Dalvin Cook had a huge night tonight, 17 attempts, 96 yards. The Lions looking great, believe it or not. DeAndre Swift going out here. Jamal Williams coming in, 20 attempts for 87 yards, looking really good. Josh Reynolds catching 6 of his 10 targets, 96 yards. And the Vikings take it by 4 points. Ravens and Patriots. Ravens looking amazing. Of course, obviously, this was going to happen. Lamar Jackson is very fueled, especially by a loss the week before. And he did exactly what he does. He produced another top 3 fantasy game for his fantasy managers, and quite honestly, he's just been stunning. He's thrown over 200 yards in all of his games. He's rushed for more than 100 yards on multiple occasions. He's got the highest amount of touchdowns, and we'll go over this at the end of the segment, out of all quarterbacks, and he's the highest scoring quarterback in fantasy so far. I believe he's number one. So keep an eye out, because if I believe I have him in one league. If you're a Lamar Jackson fantasy manager, you should be extremely happy with what you're seeing from him. Ravens take this one. Jackson runs for 107 yards. Mark Andrews catches eight receptions on 13 targets for 89 yards. Ravens win 37-26. Bengals Jets, right? Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, like T. Higgins. No, not really. Like, we didn't see a big game from Jamar Chase, not against the Jets, which is rough, right? Especially for managers who drafted him in the first round. To see him not produce the way you want him to produce is rough, but he's too talented to leave him on your bench. He's coming, and he's going to eventually start just producing wild numbers, and this will come also with Joe Burrow's more comfortable. So, in my opinion, we've already been seeing him get a little more acclimated. He's starting to move better. He's starting to throw better, especially here in week 3, especially in week 4. On Thursday, we just saw him go out there. He did great. In this specific contest, 23 of 36, pretty good. Big numbers for T. Higgins, big numbers for Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, 4 receptions of 105 yards, very impressive. T. Higgins also having a big game here. 5 of 7 for 93 yards. Yeah. 5 of 7 for 93 yards is not horrible, you know? The person who's not producing here then would be Jamar Chase, 29 yards. And then I believe that he scored a touchdown in this game. But 8 receptions plus a touchdown, you're still getting 13 points from somebody who should be slated to do 17 week in and week out. We will see him explode, and I love what I'm seeing from T. Higgins. Joe Mixon, Joe Mixon had a small day in week 3. It wasn't horrible, but because he's still you're still seeing him just have these massive these massive shares on the ball. So of course, for me, it's kind of a no-brainer, and it's different. It's going to be different for everybody, because Joe Mixon, I think, is extremely talented, but he does play both roles. He also plays the role of the pass catcher. I think he got 7 targets in this game. You only saw him catch 3 of those targets. If we would have caught another 3 or 4 balls, that would have been great for PPR leagues. And that's why I drafted him. I play only in PPR. Most of my things are PPR, and I will make the distinctions between the more popular running backs in PPR and the more popular running backs in non-PPR format. Joe Mixon being popular in both, I think, just because of the usage alone. He got still over 10 attempts on this. He got up to 12. Only got 24 yards, but it is what it is. Jets looking good. Is it Michael or is it Carter? Who will take control of this backfield? If you're a Conklin owner, you have hit the fantasy lottery. The guy is amazing. 8 of 8 for 84 in this game. Jets lose it, though, 12-27 against the Bengals at home. So that's rough. It's rough to lose. To lose at home is even rougher. All right, we're almost done here, guys. Let's get through these. Devontae Adams having an okay day. Mac Hollins having a huge day for the Raiders. Josh Jacobs being productive. He's clearly their lead back. Derek Carr, streamer option, right? I have now been streaming Derek Carr alongside Jared Goff, and the reason is because I lost Trey Lance early on. I was able to scoop up Jared Goff, thank the Lord, from the waiver, and I've just been, plugging and playing. If Carson Wentz comes available, I'll grab him too. We're about to talk about Carson Wentz next. So, Titans looking good. Derrick Henry looking like his old self. Derrick Henry is a bust, just running people over. It's impressive, looking like his old self and looking like he's learned some new things because he's catching balls now. He's got yards after the catch. I've yet to see Derrick Henry in this fashion, but a well-deserved win from them. Titans take this game 24-22. Eagles and Commanders. Yeah, I just love the Commanders, man. Anybody with this kind of passing volume, I love. 130 attempts. Only team that has more pass attempts than them, the Jets this year. If you have any wide receivers on this Commanders team, then you're looking good. You're looking pretty good. And the reason is because Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, on top of being wildly talented wideouts, are now receiving a massive amount of work. They're just seeing a whole bunch of usage. So that's awesome. They did lose in this game. They did great. McLaurin broke 100 yards, 6 catches on 9 targets. Gibson struggled a little on the run with 12 attempts for 38 yards. They didn't do horrible. 43 pass attempts, though. 43. Very impressive. Eagles, of course, are the Eagles, though. Darius Slay, James Bradbury doing what they do best and shutting down opposing wideouts. Hurts throwing for 34 yards. Devonta Smith coming into his second year and breaking things down. Obviously, he had that off game in week 1. It's cool. Who cares? 0 for 4. Forget about it. Because in this week, he got 12 targets and he caught 8 of them. 169 yards. Super impressive. You got him on your roster. I would start considering him a flex week in and week out, depending on what his matchup looks like and depending on who's covering A.J. Brown. If A.J. Brown is looking at a Darius Slay level cornerback matchup, then you can expect big things from Devonta Smith. Good example of this would be if the Eagles were to play the Broncos, and the Eagles and Surtain is shadowing A.J. Brown, which is a possibility because A.J. Brown is an elite talent in this league. Still looking like the Eagles, still undefeated. Only team in the NFL at this point that's undefeated. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. Jaguars and Chargers. This Jags defense looks unstoppable. Very, very good. I'm impressed. I'm not going to lie. Zay Jones having a big outing in this one. 10 receptions on 11 targets. Trevor Lawrence doing Trevor Lawrence things, showing people that it was not a fluke. He was definitely taken in the rounds he was taken for a reason. And, of course, Robinson just securing his spot, which for me is heartbreaking. I know how talented Robinson is. He's just extremely talented. And he came into this backfield with competition from Travis Etienne, and he left no question about who the lead back should be. So expect big things from Robinson in weeks to come. I would start him. Chargers took a hard loss on this one, going up against a very rough defense, a defense that's stacked with young, perennial players from top programs. But, they still did Charger-like things. 45 attempts from Justin Herbert, threw for nearly 300 yards. Joshua Palmer saw 6 catches, 9 targets, 99 yards. It's not horrible. It's not horrible. LA Rams, Cardinals. Cardinals doing well in the passing game. Marquise Brown, 14 catches, 17 targets, 140 yards. Kyler Murray throwing for over 300 yards, 37 completions on 58 attempts. Very impressive. The Rams here have the edge, in my opinion, defensively. Aaron Donald is, I mean, it's like having two people at the line. Like, Aaron Donald is one of a kind, and whenever you're playing, you have to really, whenever you're going to play him, especially if your quarterback is playing him, you got to really consider whether or not you're willing to take that matchup on. Packers and Bucks. This was the Rodgers-Brady extravaganza. That's how they marketed it. If you saw any of the commercials, it was it was all Rodgers versus Brady. Overall, great game. Went really well. Very defensive game, I would say. You're also talking about one of the best pass defenses in the Buccaneers secondary. Carlton Davis Jr., just an absolute superstar. He's been amazing. And other components of that the defense are also just hard to compete with. So I kind of expected this to happen, but you would have expected more fireworks. Either way, that didn't stop Brady. 8 of 8, 73 yards to Romeo Doubs, who is looking more and more like his number one receiver. Drake London, Kyle Pitts coming in and beating the Seahawks in basically a showdown. The Seahawks looking a lot better than we thought they would look. Geno Smith not looking horrible overall. Ty Lockett, 76 yards, 9 catches in this outing with 11 targets. And Cordarrelle Patterson, 141 yards. If you picked up Cordarrelle Patterson at the beginning of the year because of what he did last year, then great job. Absolutely amazing. Something I did not do. I had Cordarrelle Patterson last year, picked him up off the waiver wire in 3 of the 5 leagues I played last year. And it was the best decision I ever made, right? They took me to second place. I was almost at the bottom of the of the standing grip in week 2, 0-2. I go in and pick up Cordarrelle Patterson, and it takes me all the way up to second place. Is he a long-term bet? Is he going to be a strong performer week in and week out? Probably not. Maybe not extremely. But for non-PPR leagues, he's great. PPR leagues, he's good too, but he's somebody you should consider for your lineup depending on his matchup. Seahawks are the Seahawks, somehow looking great. DK Metcalf, not the best game. Ty Lockett putting in some serious work here with 16 points just alone from his stat line. 49ers Broncos, this is where the defense, I believe, comes into play. The San Francisco defense, just amazing with Bosa, and just usually does a good job of putting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. The Broncos D, we've talked about a bunch. Patrick Surtain is a perennial all-star, probably shadowing Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk in this matchup, depending on where they're positioned. And then the next, we have the Cowboys game. We have Cooper Rush taking the Cowboys to his second victory as a starter. Congratulations to Cooper Rush. I'm sorry. That's impressive. It's an impressive feat. Tony Pollard looking more and more explosive. Again, giving me sighs of relief that I decided to stay away from Zeke this year. Zeke's been one of my favorite running backs to draft over the last 5 years, and things change, Tony Pollard looks explosive, looks dynamic. He's a pass catcher. I think that this team at running back could start leaning in a different direction. CeeDee Lamb looked great, 12 targets, 8 receptions, what you'd expect from CeeDee Lamb, 87 yards. Expect that more from him. He's going to keep doing that. All right, guys, let's get into the fun part. Cheat sheets and lineup locks. My apologies for extending this video. I had some technical difficulties in the last video, so we clipped it. This is the continuation, if you will. Let's go over some lineup locks for this week. So I have nobody locked in. I have nobody in my lineup from the Patriots. We'll go ahead and get that out of the way. It is not a personal thing. A lot of people are going to say it's a personal thing. It's not. I actually love Belichick's scheme. I think he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. He's definitely more cerebral, and he's, I saw him smile for the first time in a press conference the other day. I was like, oh my God, Bill Belichick smiles. Go and get it. But I just don't see anybody that I myself would consider a lineup lock for this week, especially not with the Patriots. Week in and week out lineup locks. Jalen Hurts on the Eagles, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. Devontae Smith is my bold prediction. I'm saying Devontae Smith will become a fantasy superstar, and I'm thinking it'll happen this year specifically. So we'll see how that goes. Garrett Wilson. I almost put Conklin on this list, but I am a little more iffy at tight end. So Garrett Wilson is where we'll stay. Saquon Barkley, New York Giants. If you have any Giants players and they're not Saquon Barkley, I would not consider them an automatic start. For this week, Jamal Williams start for the Lions. St. Brown and Swift both out. I also heard that DJ Chark is out, so keep that in mind. Khalil Herbert replacing the injured David Montgomery. Start him this week, absolutely. And maybe next week we'll track Montgomery and we'll see how he's doing next week and how practice is going for him. Startup blocks for the Falcons, Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts just because of sheer athleticism. Drake London is Drake London and has had a huge target share. Christian McCaffrey, obviously the lineup lock for your Carolina Panthers team. The only one, too, because I took DJ Moore off of this list. I've been making this list for a couple weeks now, actually. I started it at the beginning of week 2. So, nobody else, just Christian McCaffrey. Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. Rashad Bateman, question mark? I'm not sure. We'll see. Rashad Bateman has been amazing. What a great pickup by the Ravens last year. His second year is going swimmingly. Commanders, so I put a lot of people here, and the reason is because of their passing usage. They've been passing the ball so much, 130 attempts in 3 games. That is sensational. That I will take all day long. So I put Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin, who should see a bulk share of that, and Antonio Gibson, who has positioned himself as their lead back. It's over, right? Like, there's nobody else coming in. This is it. All right, let's go through these last lists. Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, and Matthew Stafford. He has a hard matchup this week. I don't know if I would start him, but if you don't have a better option, you kind of have to, right? Bank on that Cooper Kupp connection. I'm sure he'll see a touchdown. I'm not going to go over the Bengals or the Dolphins. They already played on Thursday. We can go over the game on this Thursday when I log back in. Fournette, Mike Williams, and Tom Brady for your Bucks. Mike Williams coming back, thank the Lord, from that suspension. Alvin Kamara and Chris Olave. Chris Olave creeping into a lineup lock, and that's how it looks. I think that if we see him perform in London, if he gets that same share that he's been getting, then that's great. Patrick Mahomes is playing against Tampa Bay this week, as is Travis Kelce. I doubt Kelce will attract a shadow, but you never know. He is their best pass catcher. But it's something to take into consideration, especially if you're starting either of these two players, because their secondary, their cornerbacks have been outstanding this year. If you're playing Tampa, and I would just consider all of my skills players capped, running backs included. They've been absolutely amazing. Derrick Henry for the Titans, he's the only one. We haven't seen enough passing volume with Tannehill to get Treylon Burks in there, or maybe even Robert Woods. Robert Woods had a big day just the other day. CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz for the Cowboys, both people that have seen large upticks. Hopefully, Dak Prescott will return soon. That will give them more value. Dalvin Cook is trending upwards, but I do believe he's out this week. So if Dalvin Cook is still in your lineup, I would recommend checking into his overall status. I'm right now actually about to check it. I didn't draft Cook, but I am playing Dalvin Cook in this week's matchup. And no, he looks healthy. So he looks ready to go. I would expect him to play against the tough Saints defense, though. So consider him capped. But he has been trending upwards, and he's been getting a lot of usage. Christian Kirk, James Robinson, your starters in Jacksonville, maybe even Trevor Lawrence. You having some problems? You get Trevor Lawrence in there, you're good. Brandon Cooks and Dameon Pierce, even though he's not on here, should make the list specifically for the Texans. They are their main skills players in terms of usage. Herbert's looked great through the air, amazing. Eckler, I missed an R there, it's okay. Eckler could use an uptick in usage or goal line work, maybe even, he will get there. Keenan Allen's still injured. I believe he's out this week, so make sure you sit him and play Mike Williams if you have Mike Williams. Mike Williams on your lineup, Keenan Allen is out. You've seen what Mike Williams does. Kyler Murray, lineup lock, top 6 or 7 quarterbacks. Marquise Brown, more targets than most of the wide receivers. The only people that have more targets in that regard are Stephon Diggs and Cooper Kupp are looking at 35 targets. Massive share. So Marquise Brown, lineup lock. Zach Ertz, great connection with Kyler Murray. So lock him in as well. Samuel and Kittle on the 49ers take the starting roles. I would say they're the only really reliable ones. I know a couple of people would probably say Brandon Ayuk. He is a wide receiver 3 in my opinion. He is somebody you can consider as a flex if you need a flex. Broncos, Cortland Sutton. I believe Judy is out. I was wrong about Cooks though, so let's always double check for you guys. No, Judy's healthy, so Judy will be playing this week too. So, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Javonte Williams, maybe not Russell Wilson. I feel like you could get a better streaming option than Russell Wilson, especially in a 10-team league, maybe a little harder in a 12-team league, but I think it's doable. Metcalf will be shadowed by Okudah, so maybe look at Tyler Lockett. Maybe Tyler Lockett's a good play, but the Lions' defense, it's a work in progress, but they've been stellar against the pass. Devontae Adams is going to draw a Pat Surtain shadow this week. Keep that in mind because they're going up against the Broncos. Consider Darren Waller maybe upgraded because you'll probably see more usage with Pat Surtain shadowing Devontae Adams. Pittman Jr., Taylor, lineup locks this week, absolutely did great in week 3. Got their team a much-needed victory. Consider them ready to go. Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen for the Bills. I was considering whether we should include one of the rushers like Singletary, but he's not necessarily a lineup lock, especially not in 10-team leagues. 12-team leagues, he's probably a lineup lock, and you should maybe consider him as a flex going into this week, unless you have a better option. Must start in the Steelers matchup, Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris. Both of them, again, just see too much volume to bench them. Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones has not been as productive as we wanted him to. I'm hoping he's building a better rapport with his receivers, and he's getting there. We saw him do what he had to do last week, take down the Bucs. So hopefully it'll continue, roll into this week. And lastly, the Browns. Nick Chubb, outstanding. Amari Cooper, amazing connection with Jacoby Brissett. Recommend starting both of them. These are our touchdown leaders. As you can see, Nick Chubb topping all running backs. Jamal Williams, James Robinson, and Jalen Hurts trailing him. Jalen Hurts, a quarterback, actually makes this list on both sides of the. So, again, Lamar Jackson also here twice. Very important. Honorable mention here. Usage. This one's big. I would commit these to memory. These are our leaders in pass attempts, targets, and rush attempts. Nick Chubb, of course, at the top of this list for running backs. Stephon Diggs at the top of this list over Cooper Kupp. Who would have thought that? They actually have the same amount of targets. It's 35 each. And Joe Flacco leading the league in pass attempts. Like it's just amazing to see. Kyler Murray and Josh Allen also had massive games where they threw for 60 attempts. So that pushed them over Carson Wentz. But those are your three largest. Those are your five. Largest passing teams. The Chargers, Commanders, Josh Allen's Bills, Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, and Joe Flacco, who is being replaced this week by Zach Wilson. We'll see how that goes. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out, talking to me a little while about some fantasy football. My apologies about the technical difficulties on the last recording. My plan here is to get you guys out of here. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you for listening, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you guys on Thursday.